Super Tuesday really delivered on the super, a real shocker and a political earthquake. These are the results nobody saw coming. Let's go straight to the map this morning. Joe Biden surging to victories in 9 states, including a surprise win in Texas. Bernie Sanders won 3 states, including his home state of Vermont.
Turning now to the delegate count, Biden grabbing the lead over Sanders at the moment, 449 to 371. Keep in mind, though, it takes 1,991 to win the nomination, so we've got a long way to go to get there.
Yeah, both candidates vowing, of course, to fight on. The frontrunners addressed supporters and took a few shots.
And we're told, well, when you got to Super Tuesday, it'd be over. Well, it may be over for the other guy.
We're going to win because the people understand it is our campaign, our movement, which is best positioned to defeat Trump.
We are going to break down everything that happened last night and the impact on the race going forward. Let's start with NBC's Kristen Welker, who spent the night in Los Angeles with the Biden campaign. Good morning to you.
Savannah, good morning to you. Joe Biden pulled off one of the biggest political upsets in modern political history, and the comeback of his career, winning so big last night, he exceeded even the best expectations of his own campaign. A defiant Bernie Sanders saying his movement goes on in what is increasingly a 2-person race.
They don't call Super Tuesday for nothing.
A fired-up Joe Biden celebrating his historic night, racking up a string of commanding victories, including a clean sweep of states in the South and a stunning win in delegate-rich Texas.
The press and the pundits have declared the campaign dead. Tell that to the folks in Virginia, North Carolina, Alabama, Tennessee, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Minnesota, and maybe even Massachusetts.
Biden exceeding even his campaign's expectations.
So I'm here to report we are very much alive. And make no mistake about it, this campaign will send Donald Trump packing.
Just 72 hours after his resounding win in South Carolina and gaining critical momentum, Biden now making the case that he, not Bernie Sanders, is the candidate who can turn out a diverse electorate and fire up the Democratic base.
People are talking about a revolution. We started a movement. We've increased turnout. And the turnout's turned out for us.
Biden's comments in California briefly interrupted by protesters who were intercepted by campaign aides and his wife, Jill Biden. Bernie Sanders didn't have the strong night he was looking for, but the progressive candidate still very much in contention, winning several western states and holding a lead in the night's biggest prize, California. Overnight, Sanders hammering home his argument that he's the one to beat President Trump.
We're going to win because the people understand it is our campaign, our movement, which is best positioned to defeat Trump.
While not mentioning him by name, Sanders blasting Biden's record and calling out his initial support for the Iraq War.
One of us in this race led the opposition to the war in Iraq. You're looking at him. Another candidate voted for the war in Iraq.
Former New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg making his first appearance on the ballot after pouring $500 million of his fortune into ads, winning only American Samoa. Bloomberg's advisors telling NBC News he will reassess his campaign today.
No matter how many delegates we win tonight, we have done something no one else thought was possible.
Senator Elizabeth Warren failing to win a single state, even losing her home state of Massachusetts to Joe Biden. But overnight, Warren refusing to bow out of the race.
I'm in this race because I believe I will make the best president of the United States.
Now, as we mentioned, Michael Bloomberg is going to take a hard look and reassess his campaign this morning. He's going to huddle in New York with his advisors. As for Joe Biden, the challenge now, how to keep this momentum, what his campaign calls Joe-mentum, going. Well, his campaign says they're looking for a new round of endorsements, possibly as early as today. He's going to have an event here in California as well as a fundraiser a little bit later on tonight. The next big contest just 1 week away in 6 states. Savannah.
All right, Kristen Welker up early in Los Angeles. Thank you so much. NBC senior Washington correspondent Andrea Mitchell was up late last night, and she's up with us. You're looking at these exit polls, and that was really the first signal we got that this was going to be a surprisingly good night for Joe Biden.
It certainly was. It's fair to say that even the Biden campaign did not see this coming, and this morning they are encouraged by the numbers behind the results. A super surge on Super Tuesday.
We're told, well, when you got to Super Tuesday, it'd be over.
Call him the new comeback kid.
Well, it may be over for the other guy.
Joe Biden winning 9 states on Super Tuesday, more than anticipated and by a wider margin. The major reasons, African-American voters across several southern states. According to NBC News exit polling, Biden earned more than 60% of the vote in North Carolina. In Virginia, 63%. 62% in Tennessee, and in Alabama more than 70%. In all, almost 2/3 of black voters for the former vice president in southern states. Another factor, the final 72 hours, with Biden building momentum off of his South Carolina primary win.
Now you launched our campaign on the path to defeating Donald Trump.
And getting the endorsements of other candidates who dropped out.
That is why today I am ending my campaign and endorsing Joe Biden for president.
In Minnesota, polls showed Minnesota Senator Amy Klobuchar and Bernie Sanders in the lead in the weeks leading up to Super Tuesday. But it was Biden who took the state after Klobuchar left the race and endorsed Biden.
Vote for decency, vote for dignity, vote for a heart for our country.
While in Oklahoma, 50% of voters decided which candidate to vote for in the last few days. Among the late deciders, 41% voted for Joe Biden, while 18% opted for Mike Bloomberg, 16% for Elizabeth Warren, and 15% for Bernie Sanders.
We've increased turnout. And the turnout's turned out for us.
And the question now for both the Biden and Sanders campaigns, what to do with these exit poll numbers? Will the campaigns pivot their strategies ahead of the next primaries to reflect these changing dynamics, Savannah?
Yeah, Andrea, it's so interesting. And before we get to our NBC political analyst, former Senator Claire McCaskill, I got to stick with these exit polls again, because there's a very interesting subsection, a group that is incredibly important, these white suburban voters and how they broke last night.
And that is potentially a very big factor for Joe Biden. This is the suburban voters across several states. Let's take a look, for instance, at Massachusetts. This is Elizabeth Warren's home state, where Biden pulled off a stunning victory, in the process taking 35% of the suburban vote over Sanders' 29%, Warren's 20%, and 11% for Bloomberg.
And a lot of people feel like that's where the general election will be decided in districts and with that particular demographic. Andrea, thank you so much. Get some rest. Senator McCaskill, is this now a two-person race as far as you're concerned?
Yep. No question about it. It is two.
And no one really saw this coming. I mean, people felt like Joe Biden had some momentum. The South Carolina victory obviously propelled him. Then he got the endorsements. But if I had told you 24 hours ago, oh, it's Joe Biden who's going to be neck and neck in the delegate hall, I don't think anybody would have believed that, including possibly Joe Biden.
Yeah, this is a remarkable change in this campaign. And frankly, it is because the two most important ingredients to a Democratic victory for president are women voters and African-American voters. And he actually cleaned Bernie Sanders' clock with both of those groups of voters yesterday. So it bodes really well for November.
Well, it's very interesting because Sanders, who has basically for 4 years been retooling and re-strategizing, had gone after young voters, saying, I'll turn out, not only am I going to win the youth vote, I'm going to get more of them to the polls for the very first time, and the Latino vote, which of course is really important in Texas and California. But that didn't pay the dividends that he expected.
He actually has grown his Latino vote, but he hasn't grown his black vote. And he certainly has not grown a suburban vote. So you've got to expand. If you come in second, you've got to expand. And frankly, if you're the front runner, it's probably not smart to demonize everyone who is for someone else. And he's so busy calling black voters institutional and corporate, and so busy calling all the people that supported all the other candidates bad guys. it's really hard, I think, for particularly suburban voters to go, how is that a message that helps us in November?
Well, is he still in this thing? You look at the map where it's headed, the big states voting next, and it is neck and neck in terms of the delegate count right now.
Well, I do think it's neck and neck, but there's a couple of big states coming up. I do think Joe Biden is going to do very well in Florida. The Castro stuff in Florida is not great.
Sanders comments.
Sanders being kind of finding kind things to say about the Castro regime. So I do think Illinois is coming up, Michigan is coming up. There's going to be a battle for those voters. And I'm not saying Bernie is out of this, of course, but unfortunately for the Sanders campaign, he now finds himself behind in delegates instead of the anticipated ahead in delegates.
Senator McCaskill, what a night, Andrea.
What a night.
Thank you so much.